All right, good afternoon, Mr. Woodfin. How are you?
Good, doing well. How are you?
Good, very good. You know, Dr. Boyd and Kim Crockett is serving as chair.
Billy Holland, District 4.
Tracy Strichick, District 1.
Yes, ma'am.
Jamie Jackson, District 3.
Kyle Blum, District 5.
Okay.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
All
Nice to see
right,
you
we
again.
will each ask you 2 questions, and I get to go first.
Okay.
All right. All right. Will you please give us a brief summary of your professional experiences, your personal beliefs on public education, and why you are interested in being the next superintendent of Autauga County?
Yes, ma'am. Before I get into that, I just want to say thank you so much for the opportunity to interview today. It means a lot. In terms of my experience, I'm a product of Autauga County. I went to school throughout the system, lifelong Prattville resident. Graduated Prattville High School in 2000. Went to Huntington College, got a bachelor's degree in history. Also, later got a master's degree in secondary education, and then followed that up with instructional leadership. In terms of what my beliefs are, we should provide every child with a safe, nurturing environment. I mean, everybody knows that. I do fundamentally believe that. We should set up the system where every child has equal opportunity to all experiences. We should promote work atmospheres where educators and staff members want to come to work. I think that's one thing that I'm very proud about in my career. I think if you talk to our staff members, it is a welcoming place. Your staff members have to be motivated to want to come to work, to be able to get the kids to want to come to school. It all works together. In terms of, why I want to pursue the superintendent job, I've been asked that a lot, and it's a valid question. This is home. There's no two ways around that. Regardless how today turns out, this is still going to be home. I think I bring a unique perspective because I can build off the relationships that I do have across the district. I do have concerns as well as many of you. There are some things that we've got to adjust. We've got to work with. Education's changing daily, and it feels like sometimes we're late with some of the changes. My perspective as a principal should be able to help guide some of those changes, so how we're going to react to those changes. As far as, again, why I feel very good with the relationships I have across the district, I would challenge to say that one of the main reasons I'm here is I have a sincere concern about our mindset in Autauga County. We are too quick to say no. We are too quick to say we can't do that because of various reasons. We have to grow our mindset to not say no to the problems that we have, not to justify why we can't do things because of lack of funding. We all know we have an issue there. What are we doing to better our teachers' experience and better our students' experience? The mindset has got to change. I do not, I tell our staff, no is profanity. The word no should never enter into our vernacular when we should be trying to do things to better our students' lives. Superintendent position is one of the main positions that's going to guide that instruction. We have to change our mindset. As far as how that should look, I don't want to hear no. I want to hear, what do we have to do to make it occur? What do we have to do to make this change occur? I'm very proud of the things that we have changed. I have a lot of passion for this county because, again, this is home. I've been here. Love Autauga County. In my experience, there's been times where I've been told, no, you can't do that. My response is, well, why can't we? Don't tell us why we can't do it. Show us how we can do what we got to do. Now, it may take us 2, 3, 4 years longer, but why is it so easy to say we can't do it? It baffles me, and I'm sorry, I'm an old coach. That's the coaching mentality. In terms of another reason I feel like I should have went ahead and why I'm here, we have an issue with being too reactive. we've got to be more proactive in our district. Guys, education's changing. There's major changes coming. You know, one of the main changes that are coming, we all know the governor is really pushing for open enrollment. These are conversations we have to have as a district. Are we truly setting out to meet the needs of our district, our parents, our teachers, our students, or are we too comfortable saying we can't do that? I want to be the one that tries to lead the change in mindset, and you know, I want to be the one that tries to change some of those issues.
Okay. Being a professional educator, you have experienced many highs and many lows. What is your greatest professional disappointment, and what did you learn from that?
Well, I would say being told no repeatedly in terms of we can't do that. All right, let me back up, okay? When I was AD at Prattville, we had some issues with facility problems in the weight room. I did numerous presentations on here's the safety concerns, here's the issues, and it was a lot of no. Eventually, that changed when I got to be the principal at Marbury. It really bothers me on a fundamental level that with our career tech classes, there's only so many seats that your county schools can have. I was told when I came in, because I mean, many of you probably know my grandfather was an ag teacher for 30-something years. It is a passion of mine, but it was hard to have to keep telling students, "Hey, sorry, we don't have a seat." This went on for several years. That process of being told no repeatedly was probably the greatest setback I've had. Now, I don't do well with no. I'm gonna push the boulder repeatedly. The flip side of that would be the greatest thing I've had in my educational career is seeing our students every day in the shop. My daughter will never be a welder. You know, nothing against that. I mean, heck, they do very well. But welding and those kind of things are such a passion for a large group of our kids, and we've neglected that. Seeing now kids like my kids like our students across our campus, every kid has an opportunity to learn skills that no matter what you do, that's where I was headed with Elizabeth, no matter what you do, they're learning skills that they can turn around and be able to use once they get out of school. To me, that's the fundamental thing we should be trying to design the system for. Are we providing the opportunities across the district for all the kids to have the opportunity? So again, biggest setback is just being told no, no, no. Biggest joy is pushing the boulder up the mountain and figuring out a way that no is not acceptable. I can go into the same story with our athletic facilities. I can go into the same story with a lot of those things. It was just, hey, give up. That's never going to happen. Guys, that can't be the answer.
Thank you.
All right, I've got the next two. What steps are important to take to ensure you are not exposing the school district to special education liability?
Well, I really like how we, as a principal, we do have the attorney on call that when things occur, you can run things by the attorney. I think it's important to be able to have those conversations. Hey, this is the issue I'm dealing with. How would you recommend I deal with it? Because if it does go into litigation, I'd much rather know that I followed the guidance of the board-approved attorney than making a decision independently on my own. I think that's where we get in trouble sometimes, is trying to, quote-unquote, wing it and going from there. I like that. I hope that continues. It's a great resource, being able to work in conjunction with central office staff with the attorney. It's important to have yearly training that should start at the top down. I'm not a big, my staff will tell you, I don't like to meet to say that we met, so everybody feels good that we met. You know, same deal with training. You know, if we're going to set aside training time, let's be purposeful. I would really like to see the district, again, regardless how today goes, some of the best trainings I've sat in is in this room where we're doing principal trainings when the attorney comes in and says, all right, here's the situation. How would y'all handle that? That's real life. I would like to see more training like that where the attorney comes to our staffs and goes, okay, here's some hot topic issues. It happens in your classroom. How are you going to deal with it? I'd much rather have learning on that end than when something occurs and you're trying to fix it afterwards. I think that's invaluable. We got to make sure that funds are allocated correctly. We got to follow IEPs and follow the service plan, follow the things we got to do. Most litigation occurs because students, because we don't follow an IEP correctly, or we do not provide services correctly, or we don't have the correct LRE. That's where most of those things are going to occur. Make sure that if it's specified in the IEP that equipment or some type of service is there, make sure that our staff has the training to know it's a non-negotiable. That's got to happen. And I trust and I hope that what I'm about to say now does not come across the wrong way, but I think it's reality. I think you're interviewing me today because you need reality. Here's the reality with special education right now. We have dynamic special education teachers and aides. That is 100%. However, the pandemic changed a lot of things, and I'm sure other applicants have said the same thing. That is legitimate. We are seeing more students that are qualifying for special education services. We're also seeing mental health has become a big issue, and the time that it takes to work with a student independently and to try to get them to where they need to be, that time has increased. However, our caseloads across the district have not decreased. We have a crisis at the principal level, and I'm sure other principals will tell you, we're asking our special education teachers to provide these services, but yet the state recommendation is 20 on a caseload. I will give you a real world example. I met with my staff last August, not this past August, I'm sorry, yeah, it was this year, in August, in an in-service. And I told them, I said, guys, this is probably not the best time to tell you, but I need you to understand. My projections for special education numbers are to the point where I cannot legally keep asking my SPED staff to do what they're doing. I am very blessed. Our SPED teachers are awesome at Marbury High School. This year, I was projecting 30 to 32 or 32 to 34, depending on if certain kids enrolled. The state requirements, the recommendation is 20. If you really want to get out of if you want to stay out of litigation, again, it goes back to you got to follow the IEP. Well, put yourself in the situation of that SPED teacher. You want to go above and beyond to meet the needs of the child, but yet you have so many kids on your caseload, you're treading water to try to meet the bare minimum in the IEP. You don't get to where you have to be if you're only trying to be the bare minimum. The kids deserve more. I was ready for that conversation. I told the teachers up front, I said, guys, if we don't get another unit, I'm telling everybody now, I'm cutting a unit. I just want you all to know it's business. And as bad as it sounds, it is important to be transparent with the people in your building and the community members. It's business. I'm going to have to cut a unit unless I get an additional unit. I told them in August. We met on it routinely. The numbers came in. Again, they were high. Thankfully, budget meeting we had in March and April, I was able to express all this. I had several options. Dr. Boyd and all of them were in there, and they were phenomenal to work with. And they agreed when I came in there with a year's worth of data. Okay, here's my option. My option is I've got to have a third SPED teacher. It's not an. I mean, this is it. To get that, I'm going to have to cut math, science, English, social studies, or cut out electives. That is the reality that we as principals face every single day, trying to navigate that. To central office and board members' credit, we were able to get another unit, and I didn't have to go there. But that is, in my opinion, the single biggest thing that we've got to fix is the caseloads that are on our special education teachers across the district. We've got to have more boots on the ground, whether that's more aides, more SPED teachers, to better equip our students. I'm sure data will come up in a minute. That is one of the areas that we don't perform well. Well, how can you expect your children to perform well if your teacher is all over the place trying to hit the bare minimum in the IEP? Like, you can't have it both ways. So I think as a district, again, I think that's one of our main priorities should be diverting more funding, diverting more people to the special education department so that we can better suit the needs of our children.
Many parents are concerned about safety in school, but safety has many implications, such as the safety of the physical plant, protection of students from physical harm, security of school facilities, and social and emotional safety and well-being of students. How would you work to operate a safe environment for all of our students?
Yes, phenomenal question. That is job number one. We got to keep everybody safe. I really like how the district, I really do like how we work through discussions we had as a board, as principals, as communities on issues that we were trying to work out with safety implications. It starts with being upfront with the public on these are the things we're looking at. Seek guidance from the public on what they are willing to see, what they're willing to adjust. I know that we changed some policy there in terms of clear bags and things. I thought that was great. It was great to be able to have that interaction with your community members. Now, not to sound like a broken record, it starts with people in the building. To keep, to fully understand and to be able to say we're doing all we can. There's security. I'll say it like this. Sorry, I'm trying to say it as politely as I can. We are asking our security guards to handle security for a building. And let's take Marbury, for example. There's one school resource guy. Okay, there's one sheriff's deputy. That's great. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. The partnership that you guys have developed with the sheriff's department and the city of Prattville, as a principal and a lifelong resident, that is phenomenal. It is so nice knowing that you have law enforcement on campus, and if something happens, they're there. Now, that being said, we have to be upfront with the public as well and try to do all that we can, to me, in my opinion, to have additional people on campus when possible. You have two different worlds there, probable cause, reasonable suspicion, but we need more local, not the sheriff's office, not the police department. We need a few more local school resource officers because they're the ones that really can build the relationships with them. Now, obviously, in my opinion, it works best from a safety standpoint if you can work out an agreement with the sheriff's department that have two deputies on campus and you spread them out on either side of the campus. I think in the perfect world, that's how you do it. Some of your county schools, may only have one. There's times where we have to rotate our SRO some. So there's days that we don't have one. But again, I don't want to lose sight of the fact that 3-4 years ago that wasn't even an option, and it was on us. I think the other thing we got to be upfront with the public is, and look, I've said this to parents. I'm a parent. I've got 5 kids in the system. All we can do is all we can do, and I think that is important to be upfront about. I will never, I will never tell a parent that your child is going to be 100% safe at all times. That's not realistic. Now, that's not popular to say out loud. I will tell you this. My staff and I are going to be 100% focused on safety and keeping your child safe. I think parents realize that. You're not safe anywhere you go. There's nowhere on this planet where anybody's going to say you're 100% safe in that scenario today. But we can be more proactive. Again, what I was talking about a minute ago, more proactive instead of reactive. We can be more proactive to make sure that we have the boots on the ground in the buildings to handle the safety component. Also, not to keep harping on it, but I think we got to do a good job of balancing a fine line. Teachers want to teach. That's what they're there for. But we also have to supervise. I've been very blessed everywhere I've been. Teachers always been on board with that. That's part of my accountability as a principal to make sure that we're stationed where we need to be as well. So it's a partnership to try to keep our kids safe at all times.
Thank you.
So I get the next 2 questions there about data.
Okay.
High performance by students and accountability are priorities for us. How would you assess the current student performance levels in our school system? And how would you assess the effectiveness of teachers and programs? So the current students and effectiveness of teachers and programs.
Yes, ma'am. I'll go off the main data point that I think most people look at, state report card. Obviously we scored a 84, overall this past year. Within that report card, there's 3 areas that I'll touch on a little bit. Our academic achievement was 63%. To factor that, you look at the proficiency of all grades with math and English. When you're looking at that data, 3rd grade did really well. Every grade performed above state average. I think that's number one. Kudos to a shout out to our teachers, because again, we don't have the most resources in the state. The fact that we were above every indicator, I think, is a shout out to them. That's a great job. The one area, like I touched on a minute ago, where we did fall below the state average was students with disabilities, and I think I've hit on my belief there. I would like to see, and it started this year, and they did a great job starting to push that stuff out. I would like to see a little more vertical alignment in terms of how we're lining up our standards across the board. On a personal note, I wish there was a little more focus on, hey, if you're in second grade, what are the two things that as a district we're going to make sure, and I'm just pulling two out, but what are the two standards? What are our power standards at each grade that we're going to make sure before you go to the next one? Now, we do that some, but honestly, when you get to high school, it kind of tapers off a little bit because we're geared more toward ACT and that things. But that's one thing we instituted at Marbury High School this past year was I met with our department heads and we took that approach. Look, I don't care what math class they're in. What do they have to know before they come to see you? We did the same thing in science, same thing in social studies, English. And hopefully this will come up in a minute, but I feel very good about the data that we're going to have coming in this year. I would like to see a little more of that at the county level. Power standards, how are you going to go about it? One of the areas that we are struggling in administratively is our job has changed as well. 5-10 years ago, you could be in the classrooms every day. I deal with most stuff that has nothing to do with the school. It's all outside stuff. Days that I can make it into the classroom, I'll be honest with you, are the best days of the week because it don't happen a lot, and it's great to be able to get in there. It reminds you of why you're doing what we're doing. To solve that issue, a lot of districts, Elmore being one of them, they have instructional coaches at every level. I know we do it at the elementary level, but we don't have that resource at the junior high and high school level. That would be a 3 to 5 year goal. I mean, because again, we're fighting the issue of funding, but that is one answer to other districts and why they are able to perform a little better. They have more resources, something as simple as an instructional coach. To improve, and again, another variable I looked at, the CCR, the college career readiness. As you know, a lot of that's changing with the state. They're going to require everyone to have that. A couple years ago, as a principal, again, as an old coach, what I would always do when I coached was, at the end of the year, what did we do well? What did other teams do better than us? A couple of years ago, Holtville High School, who was very similar to Marbury High School, lapped the field with us with their data. It is the same school. Everything about it is the same. Obviously, as a competitor, you go, how's that happen? All right. I went to school with their principal, called him up. I went and met with him a couple of hours. It was mind-boggling. It was enlightening. And I ain't gonna get somewhere with CCR on this. Other districts on their report cards have 100% or right at it at the high school level for CCR. There's two glaring issues why we didn't. Now, feel very good. As a side note, right now we're about 80% with the plan that we've installed. From there, I have no doubt that in the next year or two we'll be 95 to 100% at Marbury High School, and it goes what I'm about to say. Your curriculum has to give you the opportunity to meet those indicators. There is a whole world there because of the setup of our district. Most of our kids get their career tech credits at the Career Tech Center. Well, that's also where you meet most of your CCR credentials. Well, again, it goes back to this. If Autauga, Billingsley, and Marbury don't have as many seats, because again, that's the setup, and it's nobody's fault. That's what it is. That's what it is. How can you really meet those CCR indicators if you don't have the classes on campus? And that's where we shifted our whole thing. I met with Mr. Futrell, and he opened my eyes on a couple of credentials that are honestly easy to get. And it has to do with the curriculum at the school. That's one reason we fought so hard to get ag back on our campus, because a lot of those credentials are in that pathway. What we're doing next year is, quite frankly, any senior that is not credentialed, we're on block schedule. The beauty of that is We're going to pull the data first semester, and whoever's not credentialed, they'll roll into a career tech class second semester. They will get their credential to promote to make sure that they are prepared for life after school. They will have something they can put on a resume, a credential, which should help them. Selfishly, it helps us as a school too, because now we've hit the benchmark, and guys, that's coming in 3 years, this freshman class, that you have to have 100% college and career ready. How do you navigate that change with the different dynamics in our county? That's another reason why I applied. It was eye-opening to see some of that. To improve the graduation rate, this is my fundamental belief. Let me stop there. I'm very pleased and happy. Last year, our graduation rate was like 94%. This year, we're projecting it to be anywhere between 92 and 94. And your graduation rate comes down to two things. Number one, can you track the kids that left your system? Well, that's manpower, okay? You're able to do that. Now, up until this past week, Ms. McNider helped me. I had no idea. There's ways that you can go to the AIM portal. I didn't have access to this stuff. Talking to her, she helped me out. Well, there's ways that you can track these kids that are showing up out of the wrong cohort that up until last week, we were not aware. Now, kudos to the curriculum department, kudos to us, kudos to everybody. Hey, what's the problem? Why is this occurring? And then we went out and tried to find it. The improved graduation rate, you got to know where those kids are. Again, that's what I just said. But the other thing is this. When they make it to the high school level, there has to be something there, in my opinion, after school to hold them there. You got campuses across the district that, I mean, yeah, we have some sports, but do they have other things? If not, do they have the opportunity to come to a school to participate in those things? You have to pour money, you have to pour resources into vocational education. You have to make sure that, yes, your curriculum's rigorous, push dual enrollment. Very proud of the growth of dual enrollment we've had in our school. It is blowing up. It's a great deal with partnerships that you guys know with CAC and everything. But I'm going to say this. You also have to understand that the theater class and the band and the athletics on your campus are also vitally important, and put money and time and resources in those areas to grow them, because that may be the only reason that child is coming to your campus. Well, when they get to high school, if they don't have that opportunity, they may transfer. Well, again, go back to what I just said about the data. Can you track them when they transfer? If you can't, that goes against your graduation rate. I think that's the biggest thing with data on my end, looking at where we're at, is there's some internal looking at yourself things that we can do that instantly makes us better. And some of that's not knowing, but I would just say this, as superintendent, I would encourage everybody in our district to go learn, go study. The old coaching principles still apply. You know, if somebody is better than us, well, look, man, let's not think so much of ourselves that we don't go ask. Now, they may not want to tell you because you're in competition with them, you know, but that's where relationships are so important. Like I said, having relationships in Elmore County, everybody knows we're in competition in Elmore. Our report card is going to be better this year because of the changes we made. Last thing, and I'll get off this question. I know I'm speaking a long time on it, but it's important. If you really want to fix the report card, if you really want to fix things, you got to be willing to take chances. Some of my principals are in here. They know where I'm going with this. A couple of years ago, coming out of COVID, my teachers were very frustrated. They were very upset. If you're running a 7 or 8 period day, there's nothing wrong with that. But you're going to have a pile of kids. Well, put yourself in a teacher's perspective. All right, you have 130 to 170 kids, and we're on you about rigor, and you got to have essays written. Well, now I have to grade the essays, and if they're writing them the way we say they should write them, that's not going to be a one-day deal where you grade them and you're ready to go. Well, then the grades aren't in, so the teachers get upset and they get lit up by, hey, why aren't your grades in? So all that turned into, my teachers were adamant, we've got to do something to reduce my class size. Well, I can't do that. Well, what can we do to take some of the load off? Through those conversations, through conversation with students, we put in block scheduling. It has been the best thing to improve our academics. Our ACT has went up. Graduation rate's going to go up. CCR is going to go up. It does not work for every campus, but you got to be willing to take a chance. Took 2 years of being told no, okay? But I respected when my supervisor told me, and again, these are the conversations you got to be willing to have. When I pitched it and I was approved for block scheduling, hey, you're the only one on the limb. And the conversation stopped. I said, hey, you don't even have to finish it. My people want this. My students want this. If I have, I mean, I want it because they want it. You know, I can see the issues with testing. But if the limb breaks, I'm okay. If I'm going to bat for my people, I'm okay if the limb breaks, it falls, and I'm the only one going down. I was okay with that conversation. I welcomed that conversation because it was that important to fix the morale on my campus. For the most part, our teachers stick around at Marbury High School. I don't struggle to hire people because we value their input. If that means we have to change everything that we're doing, so be it. We have to do more to make their lives easier, to make our staff members come back.
Thank you. So the next one is the data also, and student-centered educational model. So what is your experience and opinion regarding the student-centered educational model, and how would you use data to guide your recommendations regarding student success?
Yeah, I think that should be the whole thing that drives everything. It goes back to, I'll use block as an example, but before we did that, okay, I gathered student input. One day, I'm just sitting there, I had a teacher come in, and one of my great teachers, and she was just crying. Like, this was the conversation. Mr. Woodfin, I'm not doing a good job in the classroom. I'm like, yeah, you are. You're phenomenal. No, I'm not. I'm not, because I can't get everything done I need to get done. Well, what can I do? We've got to go block schedule. And that's where all that came from. I went to the students for every classroom. Guys, this is what this means. It was overwhelming. It was overwhelming. Yes, this is what we want. I think everything that you should do on your campus should be driven from the student being the center. Same thing I just said about the extracurriculars. You know, very proud in the time I've been at Marbury, we've started, a bowling team. We're looking at starting a wrestling team. Our band director's done a phenomenal job. The numbers are growing outrageously with our band program. Started a choir. There's so many things. That's not me. That's our people saying our kids need these opportunities. Well, then as a student, you have all these options that you can do. That's going to make your academics do even better. The kick or the trick to me, in my opinion, the biggest thing that you got to do working with your staff is, look, here's our goals with what we want academically, okay? If your coaches and your sponsors and your teachers are all on the same page and you really pour into students, what do y'all want on this campus? It is a two-way street. If I'm giving you this stuff, I need you to give me effort in return. They have input on what's going on our campus. So again, that model, again, I think everything should start with the students. Now, guys, it is difficult. You know, we do struggle with funding. Everybody in here knows that. But again, I want us to all understand that if we're willing to tell somebody no on whether or not something can occur, we better have turned over every rock that's absolutely possible, and we better be certain, in my opinion, we better be certain that that is the answer. Until you get to that point, you can feel confident looking somebody in the eye and telling them, hey, no, then why are we here? We should be here to make the student experience as best as we possibly can.
Thank you.
I have the financial questions.
Okay.
I know you're not surprised. What involvement have you had in budget development and ongoing fiscal management? Please give concrete examples when possible concerning such areas as community involvement in the budget process, multi-year fiscal planning, and budget development.
Well, as many of you know, I'm married with 5 kids. I don't have a choice but to understand budgeting and live on that. No, it really is, in my opinion, and I'm not trying to oversimplify it, but it really is the same concept. When I was a coach, parents, what are your goals for things that you want this year? Facility improvements, things like that. All right, here's my fixed and variable cost. Here's my sources of revenue. Here's my total revenue I'm going to have. Here's our total cost. That leaves X amount of dollars that we can put into certain projects that you're wanting to do. When I was hired at Marbury High School, I walked into a great situation. The one thing that's tough with Marbury is we don't really receive federal funding a whole lot. you're pretty much relying on your general fund to cover just about everything. There was $1,500, maybe $2,000 in the general account. I looked at my principal's report earlier today. There's $28,000 in there. Well, why? Well, because I meet regularly with my bookkeepers. We set out a budget on how we're going to operate. We look at our yearly expense. I can pretty much tell you what expenses are coming and know, hey, in March of this year we were about this time. That's the way it should work on the big scale as superintendent. You should work daily with your CSFO and your bookkeeping to know exactly what percentage of the budget you've spent. You should know about what money should be projected to come in so that you can properly allocate that money back out to know, hey, are we still within the confines of our budget? As far as the community involvement, again, I think, like I just said about the coaching side, if there's things that the community is asking for, we've got to figure out a way to budget that in. Now, it may be, hey, because our funding is at this level, or hey, because we have these issues, okay, let's work that in next year, or let's have a plan to build in a surplus of a budget so that you can bring that in. My experience at this level is, generally speaking, the way we operate right now. Most of your federal money goes to the elementary schools and your K through 12 schools. There's not enough enrollment in the K through 12 schools to rely solely on the foundational money, so we use a lot of the federal money to help the schools. So that does cause a ripple effect because there's only so much money to go around. When we're in those meetings, obviously they're public meetings. We take input. They vote on how the money's going to be spent. But the ripple effect is this: at the middle school level, the state divisor is a little higher, a little higher than what we would like. So what occurs there is you don't get a ton of the federal money, and you're more reliant on your general fund like a high school. Now, the reality of that is your junior high schools struggle to offer enough electives. It's hard because, again, they're relying on the foundation money to be able to staff their school. At the high school level, it's the same deal, but maybe even a little more. Like I said, as a principal at Marbury High School, we get a little federal money, but the problem with that is there's only certain things you can use that money for, and you have to allocate that money properly. So your high schools are generally relying upon their general funds. So been involved in all those processes. I think the budgeting process is, for lack of a better way of saying it, it is the same model. You still got to understand your fixed and variable costs and expenditures that are going to occur and your revenue that you have coming in and plan out from there.
Thank you. If you were selected as the superintendent of Autauga County Schools, what strategies would you use to increase revenue based on sales and ad valorem tax increases?
Well, I'm glad that came up.
I'm kind of nervous.
I was on the tax committee that we were exploring that issue. Guys, we are the least funded county, and it does cause a ripple effect. But I think where we went wrong before is we did not fully hear what was being said in the meetings. This is what I mean by that. The concept of open enrollment ties right into, if you're going to ask the public for a tax increase, how can you ask the public to vote yes on a tax increase when they may not send their child to the school that tax increase may be zoned for? I'm in favor of a county model, but I also think before we actually bring that up, or if we bring that up again, we've got to do a better job of, number one, showing where every dollar's going. Number two, listen to the feedback that we learned from the first process. The first process was loud and clear that people that were not in favor of it would be in favor of it if they had the opportunity to send their child where they want to in Autauga County. It was a very close vote. I know the plan changed from what it was in our committee, and that's fine. I think we were just trying to do something. But the lessons learned from that issue should guide us if we ever decide to do that again. Listen to what they're telling you. Try to have a better plan on how you're going to spend the money. And then I'll say this. I think one of our biggest missteps as a county was, and again, I was on the initial committee. Our facilities need improvement, okay? I will be the first to admit that. But you cannot mutually exclude one from the other. We went wrong when we told people we would not use the funding for personnel. Guys, you can build as many buildings as you want. If we don't pour into the resources into our people, you're going to have big, nice, shiny buildings with nobody coming to work. It is a partnership. It is I think, in my opinion, if I'm a superintendent and that comes up, I will always ask us to look at our people first, because if your people are not happy and if your people are not taken care of, and quite frankly, if other districts can pay them more money, then you're going to lose good people. That is one of the major problems we have right now, is people are walking out the door and we can't replace them. If the tax thing comes back up, I'm in favor of doing community meetings, listening to the feedback, and use the feedback to best put something out there that the public can vote on. But I just cannot say that enough. I do not feel right asking for a tax increase, and the people in that district cannot make the best educational decision for their child. I think that's one thing that we've got to desperately look at.
Thank you.
Coach, it's down to me.
Okay?
I probably know the answer to this, but I need to know the top 3 things, strengths, attributes that you would bring to us if you were selected as a superintendent.
Well, I think first off, I am local. Whether I'm here or not, as a superintendent, guys, I'm gonna be in the community. This is home. I pride myself on, and I think my parents would tell you, as far as our parents in town, the parents at Marbury, if you're going to be local, you also got to be accessible. And I do not require our parents to set an appointment to come see me. Now, if I'm busy, hey, I'll get to you. It may be 2 o'clock, but just work with me here. If you're the superintendent of education, you've got to be accessible. You should be in the community. You should be answering questions at the Dollar General. Getting old, man. My back's messed up. I went to the chiropractor yesterday, and we had an hour-long discussion about education. You should want those conversations. So I think the first thing, I'm local. I have relationships. Now, I think that's also a two-way street. Most people know that I'm always going to be up front and be honest with you. I'm very proud of, this is home. Again, I hate to keep saying that, but this is home. So the local relationships, the local tie-ins with all governmental agencies, I think is a plus. Make no mistake about it, I am a fierce competitor. I think the biggest thing, whoever gets this job, we've got to answer. And if it's not me, I promise you, I will support the next guy as much as I possibly can. As a school system, are we okay with being okay? Are we really fighting as much as we possibly can to make it as good as we can? I'm a fierce competitor. If you want to see me go, wide open and make something happen, tell me it can't be done. I heard the same thing when I went out to Marbury. You can't, I'm not being ugly, but you can't win there. Well, because we had buy-in across the staff and our kids were held accountable, we had a pretty good run. Heard the same thing at, Prattville when we overhauled some athletic stuff, and there was a bridge that we had to build back with local entities. Hey, it can't be done. Well, I feel like we did a pretty good job of that. Same thing as principal. Don't just leave it alone. It's not going to happen. Well, again, our job should be to provide the kids the best education they possibly can. That's not lip service. That is the job. And I will fight daily and fiercely to make sure that occurs. The last thing you asked for 3, I pride myself on being kind of out of the box thinker. I think that's part of the problem right now. We are too settled in, well, we've always done it this way. Well, that's great. Well, how are we going to get over the hump if we're satisfied with the answer being we've always done it this way? I guess if I could, my theme for today is, why is the answer no? Come up with a solution that's outside the box, obviously legal, obviously ethical, all that's implied. Y'all know that. But what are we going to do to make it happen? That should drive everything that we do.
Okay. You're well aware You grew up here, you've been all around here. Our county, our system is made up of 4 distinct communities. They all have a lot of great things that have come from them. There's a lot of pride in each community. Lyman, tell me, how do you unite those school communities under the umbrella where we're all marching in the same direction, where we're all pulling for the same goals, where we're all achieving what needs to be done?
Well, I think first you recognize all 4 districts are a little different, you know. But the goal of providing the best that we can for each district should not be what we get away from. I mean, at the end of the day, are we doing everything we can to make it work for every district? I think, again, not to harp on a certain word, but again, I think knowing people in all the districts would help us. But I think, again, I think you got to be transparent. You know, we're just, why are certain things the way they are in certain communities? Okay, well, let's have those discussions. Let's be transparent. You know, there are limitations. We are staring at, well, as a principal here, I'll say it. We have a lot of ESSER money running out at the end of next year. That's, the public needs to understand that there's going to be changes if all the units that are propped up by federal dollars that are running out next year. Guys, there's hard choices that are going to have to be made. And as much as I've preached about personnel, if you don't have the money to pay it. Now, on the flip side, I am not sitting up here saying, you know, raise the taxes. I'm not necessarily saying that. What are we doing to make sure that each individual district or school zone has what they need? Are we listening? I'd start there. Each zone's a little different. Listen. Now, be transparent. Hey, I hear you. This is why it struggles. Like, again, Billingsley, Autaugaville, most of our federal money goes to those schools. Well, because of that, because we want those schools open. Like, you need a school in each community. Well, because of that, there's the ripple effect that there's no federal money really in town. But that's the way it works. That's how we keep everybody's doors open. Okay, that is the reality. Now, because that's the reality, that's why it's hard to have a band director at Billingsley or a band director at Autaugaville, because you don't have the kids. Now, that's not right that those 2 schools can't participate in a band if they want to. Let's think proactively with the parents and go, hey, your child wants to be in band. All right, let's make it happen. You can come to Prattville High School, you can come to Marbury High School and be in the band. Billingsley has a phenomenal ag program. Maybe my kids don't want to do what we're doing because we're more hands-on stuff. You know, we're not animal, we're more construction, plant-based. Are we listening to try to give the kids the opportunity to go to this, even if it's just for a class, even if it's after school, if it's extra, what are we doing to truly listen? I think that's where it starts. Listen to concerns, understand that each school zone's different, and don't let those differences drive a wedge between us. Let those differences make policy change that guides us to one umbrella under Autauga County Schools.
Very good. Coach, thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you very much. We have about 10 more minutes left. If any board member would like to ask a question, now would be your time.
I ask this to everyone.
Okay.
I know you live in Autauga County, but if you get this position, will you remain in Autauga County if you're in as superintendent?
I'll say this, and I should have said it. I'm going to be here whether I get this job or not.
No, I mean, if
Yeah.
you get
Yeah.
superintendent,
Yeah.
will you stay?
And that's where I'm headed. You know,
Okay.
No, he's gonna.
I love Autauga County. Autauga County's been great to me, my family, and myself. Wouldn't change anything about the path that my life has led to here. And again, regardless of how today turns out. Now, if I'm selected as superintendent, absolutely. Look, I've heard today a lot of phone calls. And Holly, I do want to say publicly, I appreciate so many people that reached out today. It was very heartwarming to get all the calls and all. But one of the things that kept coming up is, you know, why do you want to do it? And we've hit on that. The average expectancy for a superintendent is 3.5 years. And I know that is something that you have to factor as a board. The only way we get Autauga to where it has to be is whoever you hire, whoever that is. Again, if it's not me, I promise you I'm going to support the next person. Whoever that person is has got to ride it out with you guys till the end. Because ultimately the superintendent's job is to carry out your vision. So if we're not making a hire that's going to be here till the end of everybody's term, then we're going to be right back where we are right now. You're going to be interviewing again in 2 years. I'm not going anywhere. It has to be a partnership between the two entities, and whoever you hire, I hope is here to at least the duration of you guys. I feel like I'm fairly young, but I've got 6 years before I can retire. I hope I'm like my grandfather and I go 30, 35. I enjoy what I do, but I'm under no illusion. We got a lot of work to do. It's going to be a lot of stressful days. There's going to be a lot of hard decisions that have to be made. But if I'm selected, yes, ma'am, I will be here until y'all cut me loose.
Well, is there any questions we didn't ask you or something that you want us to know that we didn't touch on?
No, just I just want to say thank you. I do not envy you guys. I appreciate so many people coming out today. We do have. I just want to leave you with this. We have a great system. We have great educators. We have great people here. I think sometimes when negativity comes out, it clouds the fact that we have great people. We have great results. If you go back and look at the report cards over the last 5 to 10 years, even though it may feel bad, we're pretty much where we've normally been. And I think that's something that the public don't really understand is, honestly, we're pretty much where we've always been. Now, is that a result of that's as good as we can be with the current things that are in place? Maybe. Or is that an indication of how good our people are? I would lean more towards how good our people are, and let's try to get them over the top. Again, I appreciate the opportunity. It means the world to me. I appreciate you guys doing what you're doing, and I just thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Well, thank
Thank
you very
you.
much,
Yeah.
Mr. Woodfin.